Okay, perfect.
Oh, you can see us.
Ooh.
That's so exciting.
Whoa, okay.
Hi guys, welcome to our live.
Hello. Do we start with like ND intros?
Yeah.
Or do we want to wait a couple minutes so a few more people can join? Oh, never mind. That was quick. Yeah, we
Oh.
can start.
Woohoo. Okay, let's get started. I'll go ahead and start. My name is Meaghan Northup. I'm a senior, so I've been a Notre Dame admissions intern for 3 years now, which is really exciting. My majors are business analytics and French. When I was on campus, I lived in Pascarella West Hall. Go Weasels. And a couple things to know about me. Outside of Notre Dame admissions, I'm really involved with consulting stuff on campus, as well as hall government and French club. So if you have any questions in those realms, feel free to ask me.
All right, and then hello everybody. My name is Sophia Ochoa. I am also a senior. I am an RA in CAV, so roll chaos. I study visual communications design, which is a really fancy way of saying graphic design. I also have a minor in theology, and I am from the Philippines. So if you have any questions about being an international student, the transition period, feel free to ask me. Oh, and this is my second year of being an ND admissions intern.
Hi guys, my name is Emily Shelburne, and I'm also a senior, and I study political science and global affairs, and I am from Texas originally, so any questions about moving from somewhere warmer, specifically the South, I can definitely help you with that. On campus, I used to be in Pascarella West with Meaghan. I now live off campus, and on campus I'm super involved with KIO School of Global Affairs. I'm really helpful in the mentor program that they do there. I also help with the magazine that they run and a couple other mentor programs on campus. So,
sweet.
Awesome. Well, if you guys have any questions, we are super excited to get started and answer them.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else is from Texas. Love to see it.
Look at that.
I don't think there are questions. Not yet, at least.
That's okay.
He said, what's a leprechaun?
Oh,
What's a leprechaun?
That's a funny question.
Is it an Irish mythical creature?
Yeah, I think so.
I just know he sits at the end of the rainbow with a pot of gold.
See,
Is that
I
the lore?
took that very literally. I was thinking of we have this guy who I've known both leprechauns. I knew Ryan Corey because he was on the Notre Dame admissions team, and then Colin this year is a finance major. So
no way.
We've had some overlap, which is funny.
Love that.
Someone else asked favorite game day tradition.
Ooh.
Midnight Drummer Circle. Definitely my favorite. I remember in my first year of college, I went to every single one of them. And for those who don't know what Midnight Drummer Circle is, it's essentially when the drumline of the marching band play in front of the dome at midnight, kind of just to kick off the Saturday festivities that they normally have their set, I guess, marching band songs that they play, but they normally do some little skits or they do a special song in between just to kind of spice things up.
What about you, Meaghan?
Ooh, okay. I think that mine is definitely touchdown push-ups. There's just something really fun about being lifted into the air. And for those of you who don't know, at Notre Dame football games, when we score a touchdown, we choose one friend to hoist into the air, and we do push-ups with them. So last weekend I did 35 push-ups, which was really awesome. But yeah, it's really fun. It's also fun to lift your friends,
Yeah, absolutely.
a little workout in the middle of the game.
I think that's probably mine too, just because it's really fun to do with your friends here, but also I love when people are friends or family come and visit and kind of getting to show them that tradition, just because it's so unlike anything else, and so I feel like that in itself is really cool.
Yeah.
I also feel like it's kind of I know it really started as a Notre Dame football thing, but now sometimes I see it at soccer games or other sports will try to implement it as well. So it's just kind of fun how it kind of permeated to the other teams.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone said, what's your favorite spot to study on campus?
Ooh.
So favorite study spot? I have a couple. I've never been super into Habsburg the library just because I feel like I need to not be around so many people because I get easily distracted. So I really love studying in Remick Family Hall.
Oh, that is nice.
They have a really nice upstairs and a downstairs area, so you can kind of pick or choose. One's a little bit more busy, I guess, and then the upstairs is usually a little quieter. And they also have free snacks and coffee, candy, chips, things like that. Also just protein bars, random things like that. And so I think I can motivate myself to study there too.
Also, the lighting in there
It's very nice.
Oh, yeah, it is
gorgeous.
nice.
It's really, really nice.
So I'd also say Remick Family Hall is one of my favorites. If I really need to hunker down, I'll go to Westlake, which is a little bit kind of on the edge of campus,
Whoa,
actually.
I've never heard this
Yeah,
before.
either.
So it's a design building, and the reason why I like it is, one, because it's so far off, no one goes there. So during finals week, it's dead silent, which I really like, and also they have so many computer labs there, so I don't actually have to bring my laptop, which is really nice. So everything's kind of accessible, even if it's kind of a 20-minute walk.
What about you? Do you have any favorites?
So mine it's actually like just off campus. So P-Dub is all the way in the north part of campus. And for me to really commit to studying, I like to really separate myself from my dorm. So I would make the hike all the way to the Starbucks that's across the street from the south of campus. It's like a 30-minute walk from Pascarella West. But when I'd go, I'd get myself a latte and I'd say, okay, you've devoted 30 minutes to walking here. Now you have to spend like 5 hours working. So it's like little treat, and also like, are you really gonna walk back anytime soon? No.
So true.
Yeah, that's very true.
Has that changed since now being off
Well,
campus?
see,
or-
that's what's so funny. I live very, very close to that Starbucks now, and so I actually don't ever go there anymore.
It's too close to
So
home.
now I walk on campus to study.
Love that.
So somebody asked, I don't know, but we can direct them to like other resources.
That I will be involved in later this year. Oh, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
I think that there's room to mention that you will be doing it, but I do think that it's important to highlight like what you're doing right now. But I think
This is for
talking
Jack.
about-
Jack asked about internships.
yeah, so like if you have an internship next summer, like and I certainly did not, so don't feel like you have to going into like your senior year, but you can put it, but it's not. I would weight more heavily the things that you're currently up to.
I think that's a really good point.
I remember I forgot who I specifically emailed, but I remember I emailed somebody saying like, hey, I just got inducted into NHS, so I don't know if that's gonna bump up my application, but
Do a couple little updates.
yeah, I kept them updated with things that I was doing towards the tail end of senior year.
That's a really good idea. Someone asked, how is faith integrated into culture in D?
Oh, I like this question.
Those are good questions.
Yeah.
I can start with this
go
one.
ahead.
So I'm Catholic, and so I've really, really loved being at Notre Dame. Not that you have to be Catholic. I have so many friends of different faiths at Notre Dame, but we do there's different masses around campus and also in your dorms. So if you practice, you are able to go to like a Sunday night mass, and I'd usually go in my PJs when I was on campus, and now sometimes I actually walk back to campus to go back to my dorm mass. Some other ways that I think is really important is I'm a part of the business honors program, and the program really tries to integrate doing good in business, and a lot of that is centered around like a faith if you practice, and if not, just like generally doing good. And I love that, you know, in a major like business, I can still really focus on, okay, how am I ensuring that I'm still serving my faith while doing what I study?
Yeah. I think kind of just to give a little different perspective. So I'm non-Catholic, I'm a Protestant, and while I feel like the Catholic tradition and faith is so, I think, evident on campus, like in the sense of like dorm mass, and then the way that I guess Notre Dame operates as a university, very inherent that the Catholic faith is very strong at the university. I think that in no way or regard does it ever like shove it down your throat or say that you have to go to dorm mass or you have to go to XYZ. It gives you a lot of flexibility to also explore your faith. So there are also a lot of non-Catholic student groups. Shout out to Iron Sharpens Iron, which is an interdenominational faith group on campus that I'm a part of. There's also ones for Greek Orthodox, or if you're Baptist. There's also just specific women's ministries like Delight that are on campus. So a lot of ways where you can grow in your faith.
Yeah, I'm also not Catholic, and I think there's also different groups that will just meet, and you can go to church with other people, which is really helpful.
yeah.
So I found some really good places off campus that allow me to kind of plug into that side of things with other people who are also not Catholic. And then kind of on the same thread, somebody asked if there are any dorm masses in other languages, and if there's a traditional Latin mass. I think.
So I know for certain that there are other languages.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big part of French Club, and we help out with the French Mass, which happens once a month. And then I know in the Basilica there's always a Spanish Mass, I think
Mhm.
once a week,
Yes.
which is really nice. And I am positive that somewhere on campus there's Latin Mass as well.
Yes, I have heard of that. And then since I'm Filipino, I'm pretty plugged into what's happening within the Filipino student organization, and they have had a Filipino mass, I think once last year, which is really great.
Yeah, I think they do try and have masses in different languages just because they know not only is it nice to hear something else, but also for a lot of students who English isn't their first language, being able to hear mass in their own language is really special.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And someone else asked, oh yeah, someone mentioned that there is a dorm that does Spanish mass traditionally, but they don't know which dorm. So, somebody asked about our roommate experience with the random roommates from freshman year. I can start this one off.
Yeah.
I had a very unique experience, and it's one that I'm very grateful for. I came into college kind of thinking that me and my random roommate were going to be like best friends, and I think that for the case that was a way, like that happened for a lot of people, but it obviously doesn't happen for everyone, and it was maybe a little less realistic for me to think that would just be the case. But me and my roommate were friends, and we got along, and she was very nice to live with. But because we weren't best friends, I was really able to make a lot of other really good friends in my dorm. And so I think that because of that experience, I have the friends that I do now, and I have the friendships that I have with other people who are in my dorm and also other dorms. And so that's to say that I think the random roommate experience can be different for everyone, but I don't think it needs to be like a bad thing or something to be scared about or worried about either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd also say, like, I'm kind of in a similar situation where I really enjoyed my random roommate. I mean, we were very different in the sense that she was pre-med, I'm graphic design, so no intersection whatsoever. But it really opened me up to all the other different kinds of students on campus, just different walks of life. And also kind of in the same boat, we were civil, we weren't really close, and that is completely okay. I think really at the core of it, it's just learning how to live and how to communicate with different types of people, just coming from different backgrounds. So.
Yeah, I had a really similar experience. I loved my roommate. We had a lot of fun, but we are never like best friends. But to talk about the other side of the coin, I'll talk about my best two friends, Natalie and Emma, who I'm sure you've seen on the Notre Dame admissions page because they always oblige me and let me post them. But they were random roommates, and every single year they have roomed together and just clicked so well, and they are always lovely. Like, they're still best friends to this day. And that is super duper common as well. So, like, if you are best friends with your random roommate, that's awesome and that's so exciting. But also, I think one of my concerns was that if I wasn't best friends with my roommate, that maybe I wouldn't find girlfriends in my dorm. Like, that was something that worried me. And I'm still living with, like, two of the girls who I lived down the hall from in PW today. Like, even off campus, we lived together. And I'm still really good friends with so many different PW girls. So even if you are not like besties with your roommate, like you know, people who go to, like, Notre Dame students are so kind and so good that like the far, you know, or the most normal experience is to have a great experience with whoever your roommate is.
And I think that's something really special about Notre Dame is that you might not be rooming with your person, but your people are here.
Yeah.
And there's so many good people who you become introduced to, and who you also get the pleasure of meeting and just kind of like learning with. So I think that whether you end up being best friends with your random roommate or whether your best friend lives around the corner and you don't realize it yet, I think that there is a good place for roommates with everyone. Yeah. I think that's what minoring in theology.
Oh yeah, so someone asked what's minoring in theology like, and so I'm a Theo minor as well, and I absolutely love it. So the way that the Theo minor works is that in addition to the two mandatory or university required Theo classes, you have to take 4 additional ones. And I've really enjoyed the ones that I'm in right now. I think that the theology department does a really great job in covering a whole spectrum, or I guess range of different theology classes you can take. So things like as Christian architecture, or even just delving into scripture itself. So like I'm in a theology of Hebrews class. You can also just take Christian or Catholic history. So it's been really great. There's a really wide spread of faculty and certain topics that you can encounter, which is great.
What else? There's a whole bunch.
I know.
Okay.
So
start.
psychology, nursing.
Okay. One thing I'll mention just to highlight across the board in terms of doing service, if that's something you like to do, is we have a program called Mercy Works, which allows you to link up with other students who have an interest in doing service, and they assign you to go work at a specific organization. So while being at Notre Dame, I've worked in a preschool, I've worked at a homeless shelter, I've done some work at like a center for kids who needed some extra help. Like there's lots of opportunities. So if you have a specific service interest, and like I've never had a car on campus and it's always been accessible to me, so if that's something you like to do, there are groups on campus that allow you to serve the groups that you want to serve.
Do we want to do one of these three or all of these three?
Yeah, why not? So really quick question, do you have hall bathrooms all 4 years, or are there suites? So at least the way that it works in CAV, so there are communal bathrooms, and that's standard for 2 on every floor, but there are certain special rooms like quads or singles or even doubles that have a private bathroom. So those you do have to kind of, you can't really get them as a first year. You have to go through the whole room pick situation at the end of each academic year, and normally those are the rooms that do tend to go first just because private bathroom. But I know that if you have or need certain accommodations, the university can help provide that for you.
Yes.
And kind of with that, I know that kind of across all of the dorms that there is kind of a range. I think for coming in for your first year, you pretty much do use the communal bathrooms, unless you do have a different circumstance like Sophia was saying. But I know that depending on what dorm you're in, there's a lot of range for the rooms, and obviously with that comes the bathrooms as well.
Yeah, like I don't think in P-Dub there are any private bathrooms, but P-Dub does have AC. So you win some, you lose some.
So true. Every dorm's different.
Yeah, every dorm is different, which I feel like not only adds to the dorm culture, but makes things unique. But I do know for a fact that like there are a lot of the newer dorms especially have different configurations, and so like obviously those come with different rooms, different bathrooms, things like that.
Yeah. Quick question. How easy is it to get involved in clubs or extracurriculars in your first year around campus?
Too easy.
I think it's really easy. I think you'd have to really try not to get involved, to not be involved, just because there's so many different, there's like the club fair, which features over 400 plus clubs. And then also there's the fact that most clubs on campus host weekly events and things like that. So even when you're just walking around campus, even if you're not a part of that club, you can still take part in the events and learn a bit about the club. They usually have food, different things like that, or like food trucks, do different things on library lawn, different activities, things like that. So as far as like getting involved your freshman year, I think it's super easy to do that just because there's so many options. And having the club fair at the beginning of the year helps people kind of get introduced to the different options as well.
Yeah, I'd also add to that, like, there are a lot of clubs or organizations on campus where you do not have to join right at the beginning of the school year. There are a lot of clubs where you're like, oh, I'm kind of interested in this, but I didn't go to the very first meeting. And that is totally okay. You can pop in when you know that they have general board meetings. But I know that there are some organizations like student government or maybe club sports that require tryouts where you do have to kind of get plugged in relatively early.
Yeah. And someone asked what student life is like.
That's great.
Well, I'll touch on this one, and I'll also use it to talk a little bit more about clubs. So my student life experience has varied from year to year a lot. My freshman year, I did some things that I were involved in is I auditioned for a play, and I was cast, and I did that. I served for P-Dub's Closet event, which is this like huge event where they do like a thrift store where like students around campus can donate their clothes, and then usually students are able to buy clothes for like $5. And in past years we have Lululemon, we have really nice jeans, like anything you can think of. It's like the craziest, nicest thrift store you've ever seen. And all the proceeds go to South Bend Center for the Homeless, so it's an amazing cause. My sophomore year, I was vice president of my dorm, so it was completely different, and then I also did Notre Dame admission stuff. My junior year, I studied abroad, which was so different than anything else I'd done, and now living off campus, I'm back doing theater and other things. And I say this to say that, like, your Notre Dame experience will vary from semester to semester and year to year, but, you know, I've been able to do so many different fun things in my time at Notre Dame that it's just made my experience amazing. And then outside of, like, your extracurriculars, there's football games in the fall, there's dances in the spring, there's the Holy Half, which you can train for. Like, there's just so much to do all the time. So student life is always bumping and fun.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think that my student life is also varied just because, like Sophia was saying, you can come in and out of clubs and join things like that without having to necessarily be in them at the start of the year. And so I know my freshman year I was a little bit overwhelmed with just the amount of things that there were to do. And so I tried to, like, I guess I tried to limit myself in what I joined just to make sure I didn't overcommit as I was trying to adjust to the weather and trying to adjust from being so far away from home, being out of state. But even with that, I feel like my student life experience has been good no matter what I've been involved in. And I've been really happy with each year my involvement and the things I've gotten to do as well.
Yeah.
And then, I'll do this one first. Yeah. Someone asked about Keo, and I don't want to spend too much time just because that's like as kind of niche or like newer major, things like that. But I am a secondary major in Keo, and so my global affairs is my second major. And so Keo is one of my favorite schools on campus. I think that because they're such a newer program, they have a lot of resources. The professors in Keo are some of my favorite people on campus. Not only are they very kind and understanding, but they're also constantly doing really interesting research, really interesting work, and really open to having students get involved. So right now I just started a new program that's called like the Global Poverty Scholars. And so we're getting to work, me and another fellow are getting to work on teams with that different faculty are heading, where they do a lot of international projects, things like that, kind of focused on poverty alleviation around the world and also within the state. And so there's always a lot of opportunities to get involved as a student, whether you're doing work with a professor or doing something like helping with the new Keo magazine, things like that. And so if you have any more questions about Keo, feel free to ask me. I just don't want to take up too much of the other time.
And then someone asked, what is something unique to Notre Dame? I guess I can start. I think the main thing that really attracted me to Notre Dame, and something that will always, I think, stick out for me personally, is that you are never just another number or a statistic within Notre Dame, is that you are a person that they want to invest, that the university wants to invest their time in. So I remember even before I stepped on a campus and I got accepted into Notre Dame, I don't know how, but a design senior reached out to me and was like, hey, I heard that you're intending to major in design. If you have any questions about class registration, like, feel free to let me know. And I was like, whoa, how did this girl get my number? But I thought it was such a great welcome already from the get-go, that someone was so interested in making sure that I had an easy transition. And even then, just going through certain events in my life, like I remember I had to go to the ER in my sophomore year, and there was people texting my mom who were on campus saying like, hey, I know you're in the Philippines, so if your daughter needs any help, just let us know. And it was also such a great thing for my parents to also hear, just knowing that no matter how far or where you come from, there are people who are looking at, have your best intentions in mind. Yeah.
It's nice to have a support system regardless of where you're from as well, too.
Absolutely.
Someone asked about study abroad. So we all three studied abroad last semester. I studied abroad in Rome.
I went to Spain.
I went to Angers in France.
And so obviously very different places, very different experiences. But someone asked what were the most memorable moments.
Oh.
That's a really good question.
Okay. Okay. I have a good one. So my friends and I did the France program, and it's a pretty intensive program. When you're in Angers, you live with a host family, and you're in classes 5 days a week, so it's not quite the same, like, travel every weekend experience that I think some study abroad programs at Notre Dame have. But one of the perks of my programs was we had a 2-week spring break. And so my friends and I planned this whole, European adventure where we took a plane from Paris to Prague, and then we took a train from Prague to Vienna, and then Vienna to Budapest, and then we flew down to Athens. And this was, all totally on, the low budget. But finally, we ended our trip by going on a ferry to Naxos, Greece. And we took a bus to this mountain. And we climbed this mountain. And we were royally unprepared for this trip. We show up and there was this like huge group of French people and they all had coats on and everything. And we were in like shorts and tank tops. But we were determined. And so we climbed to the top of this mountain. And it was just so much fun with these new friends that I had met in France. And we had the most amazing time. And honestly, like those girls that I met studying abroad, and I have amazing friends already on campus. So I wasn't even really expecting to like make more amazing girlfriends. But these girls are just like some of my best friends now. And so I just am so grateful to have had that experience with them.
I think I'm still thinking about it.
I can go. I feel like I have two pretty huge memorable things. So I was obviously abroad in Rome, but I actually have a blog coming out about this soon. I wasn't supposed to be in Rome. I was originally supposed to be in Rwanda, and then that didn't work out. And then I was also supposed to be in Jerusalem, and that obviously did not happen either. And so Notre Dame helped us figure out a way that we could still study abroad. And I fortunately got to study abroad in Rome, which was super, super cool. But one of my best friends from home came and visited me. She had they were on the quarter system, and so she came and visited me. And so just getting to travel around and be with her, which I was not expecting at all, was super, super cool. And then also in Rome, we lived in neighborhood apartments. And so not only getting to kind of like live with other people, live with actual Italians, but also just getting to meet other people from other schools. So our apartments were done with 3 Notre Dame students and then 3 students from somewhere else. And so I made new friends from other schools, which was super, super cool. And so there's different people above and below in our apartment building who are also students at JCU, which is the university we're studying at there. And so I think kind of just getting to get to know a couple Notre Dame people who I didn't know already. And I probably would have never known, at least especially not to the way that I did, but getting to know them. And then also getting to make new friends from other schools while studying abroad was super cool. And so I think just kind of like, I think the travel was super cool, but also kind of just like the day-to-day type things as well, which like you wouldn't really think of, but I think one of the biggest things I miss is like random gelato runs with friends or like doing something random and spontaneous with my roommates that wasn't maybe all that exciting, but just the fact that you're doing it with new people and new friends makes it super cool.
Yeah, I think kind of to wrap up this question, I think I wouldn't necessarily say that I can think of one specific event from my study abroad, but again, it's kind of the culmination of little things. So being able to walk around, so I got to study abroad in Toledo, which is about a 30-minute train ride from Madrid, and it's a really small medieval city. So being able to walk around the whole city in 30 minutes, or we got to hike to kind of this big lookout spot, which was incredible. And also, I think also the same thing with Angers in France is that our study abroad programs were both in Spanish and French, respectively. And so being immersed in a completely new language and being able to kind of start from, well, at least in my case, kind of start from scratch and then being able to hold up a Spanish conversation with a local at the end of it was a completely surreal experience.
Yeah, cool. And then kind of with that on the same theme, somebody asked what it was like coming back to school, specifically talking about like housing, getting back into campus life, things like that. I think, at least I can speak to getting back into campus life. I didn't have my housing picked until the fall of my junior year, which is a lot later than most people ended up doing. But it worked out great because I am in like the new apartment buildings, which are super nice. And then as far as like getting back into student life, I feel like it was pretty seamless. Just because a bunch of people either study abroad in the fall or spring, typically junior year, and so there's usually like large cohorts of people who are missing at a time, so you kind of just get used to like refilling in things like that. But I feel like as far as transitioning back, school-wise or like campus-wise, it wasn't pretty simple.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that one thing that maybe is a little bit challenging is there's a big pace of life difference that I experienced between my life in France, where, I didn't really have a lot of homework. I picked up water painting, it was very French. Coming back and I'm a business analytics major, so I do a lot of coding, it's a lot of math, It's an adjustment. Like, you have to kind of prepare yourself mentally for, okay, I'm going back to this phase in my life where it does require a little more effort and it's a little more structured. But, I was so excited to see all of my on-campus friends, and also coming back and having American football was just so exciting. It was so exciting. Or, Chick-fil-A.
American fast food, I think in general, I was like, wow.
A big mess, yeah.
I think for me, the main component that I missed the most about it, I guess, being abroad was definitely my dorm. So since I'm an RA, it's so nice to be back in CAB. I remember, so RAs get to move in a little bit early because of hall staff training, but I remember I may have gotten into the building a little bit earlier than move-in time, but I remember I stepped in out, I shed a tear. I was like, oh, this is so refreshing to be back on campus. I'm so excited to see all of my on-campus friends and seeing all of the underclassmen that I got to be friends with, so that was pretty seamless, but very just like, oh, nice to be back.
And someone asked about outside of school.
Ooh. Oh, okay. Oh, I'll talk about something that I've loved. So, on campus in the springtime, it's really nice because as much as I love football, it's really nice to have Saturdays and Sundays like free to do homework or whatever else you need. And each year, starting with my sophomore year, I endeavored to train for the Holy Half, and I'd never run before or anything. And so I committed to it, and I would go on runs, and I slowly, increase my mileage. And each time I would take a different route around campus, and so I got to discover all the trails around the lakes, how it goes back to St. Mary's, which is another school really close to here. I figured out how you can get back down around to campus and onto Eddy Street, and there's this pretty little sculpture garden on the south of campus. And so I've loved just exploring the beauty of Notre Dame, and whether you're walking or running or biking or however you want to do it, I think it's really cool to just take in the beauty of it. And then I had a tradition where I'd end all my runs at the grotto, and I would go say a prayer at the end of each of my runs. And it was just always a really nice peaceful moment for me. Notre Dame gives me a lot of peace.
Yeah.
And so outside of my classwork and friends and social life, being able to walk around campus and just take in how beautiful it is, even in the middle of South Bend winter, has been so nice for me.
I think one of my favorite things, just being from Texas, especially central western Texas, I haven't really had seasons, or at least true seasons ever. And so at first I was dreading, my freshman year, I was absolutely dreading what an actual winter would be like, since I've simply never experienced one. But now one of my favorite things is watching the seasons change.
Yes.
And so campus is obviously gorgeous year round, but especially in the fall when all of the leaves are changing. And
so pretty.
You can see them change as you walk up to the library, also by the grotto. And there's just so many trees on campus, so kind of watching them change with the seasons. And then my favorite winter activity, I really like going to hockey games, but my favorite winter activity is watching the snowfall. And so last year, one of my friends, it was their birthday party, and it was the first snowfall. And we sat there for a good 45 minutes and just watched the snow. It was the most peaceful thing. And so I think that kind of getting to being in the Midwest, which I probably wouldn't have guessed would be one of my favorite things, has become one of my favorite things I really appreciate about Notre Dame.
Campus right now is beautiful.
Oh my gosh, it's so pretty.
I may be really cold, but I like just looking at the different colors on the trees now, and just watching it change. I think also just there is some beauty to South Bend, while some people, my parents did not know what South Bend was or where it was. It was just oh, it's somewhere in Indiana. Okay. But I think there are a lot of really great gems that you can explore around South Bend in the area as well. So really great restaurants, really great little activities that you can do. And also because it's closer to Chicago by train, it is nice to sometimes go up to the city just for a little day trip and just explore the big city of Chicago.
Somebody asked about playing sports. Is there enough time to say something? I think, so somebody asked about playing sports. None of us are on any official teams, but I know a lot of people do club teams.
I do.
And then also my roommate my former roommate, her and a couple of our other friends are all played D1 sports, or on D1 teams. And obviously that does take up a good amount of time, but I feel there's not too much that she missed out on. She was still able to be involved and attend fun campus events with me, do things like that. So having kind of the balance, which I think is something that Notre Dame does really well, the balance of the academic, but also your own personal student life and while also having the athletic career, things like that, I think.
They provide a lot of resources
Absolutely.
to students.
Yes.
Like, they provide extra tutoring and different opportunities for them, and also give them priority registration for classes so that you can really, like, maximize your schedule. So if you are an athlete on campus, at least from all the athletes that I've talked to, there's really, really good support for you.
Yeah. And then I guess coming from more of like the club perspective, so I'm on club tennis, and really I think in general, whether you're in inter-hall, intramural, or even club tennis, I think in terms of the time dedication is really what you want to make of that club sport. So I remember in my first and sophomore year of college, I was really dedicated to club tennis. I went to both practices every week. I wanted to go to as many tournaments as I could, and kind of more now as I'm being with RA and hall staff and all these other activities, and also figuring out job opportunities after graduation. I think I've pulled back a little bit, but it's still a great time to pick up a sport that I really loved in high school and still love now.
And then someone else asked about the different dorms and their traditions. Could we point them maybe also to the different dorm Instagrams, things like that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So somebody asked about the different dorms and their traditions, and each dorm has some pretty unique and distinct traditions to themselves. They also do like different special events, like Meaghan was mentioning. PW does things like PW Closet, things like that. And every dorm on campus has not only special events, but different traditions that they do. And a great way to see some of these is to look at their individual Instagrams. I feel like they typically do a good job of showing what it's like to be in that dorm, and kind of what their dorm is about, what they do a lot of. So I feel like.
Yep, and Notre Dame admissions should be following some of those. So
I think they follow all.
I think
of them.
they.
So if you go to who we follow, you can look at the different dorms and check them out. Some ones that I think are really fun to highlight is Fisher Regatta, for example, in the spring, where students come together and they make boats and then they race in the lake. That's a really fun event. Or Pascarella West has started a new event called Snow Cones and Slides, or brought it back. It was an event, and then it wasn't during COVID, but after, where we have these like huge inflatables on South Quad and ices, and it's really nice.
And then in Cav, in the fall, we have this thing called the Cabaret, which is cater dinner and a show. So we have different student performance group on campus, or even people from Cav come to perform. We get to have a nice little dinner on North Quad. And kind of as a little lead-up event, we do this new thing called karaoke, which is where you can perform again on North Quad. Some good old karaoke from 10 p.m. to midnight, so that was electric.
I love that. There's also different things like El Hop that I think Bruce does, Carol Christmas. So some of them are more seasonal, and others are kind of just any time during the year. But because there's so many dorms on campus, there's pretty much always somebody doing something, and everybody's obviously welcome to go and enjoy those as well.
Absolutely.
Did any of you participate?
Yeah, I don't think any of us have participated in that program.
And then someone asked what clubs we would recommend. I think that it's hard to go wrong, honestly. And because there's so many options, find what you're interested in, and do it. I think that a lot of people, I at least for me personally, I think that there's something for everybody. And so whether that's doing like an engineering club or maybe club tennis, something a little more physical, or I think there's even like a cookie baking club. Like there's literally a club for every single thing that you could think of doing. And if there isn't, you are more than welcome to start one. I know the pickleball club is going strong these days. So there's a lot of opportunities in clubs. So I wouldn't necessarily say, I think that it's hard to go wrong with whatever club you do decide to do. So I don't know if I have a specific recommendation for one.
What's the nichest club that you guys have participated in?
Oh.
I'll start. I'm in the Not So Royal Shakespeare Company, and we put on a Shakespeare play every semester, so I had no idea that existed, and it's really niche, but it is so much fun.
I don't think I can top that. I've been in student union, like sub or student union board, pretty consistently for all of college, but I don't think that nearly counts as.
Well, talk about some of what's
Sub's great.
Yeah, sub does a lot of events on campus. They pretty much have events scheduled throughout the different weeks, so they have multiple committees that kind of focus on doing different things like bringing concerts. I know we've had Coin, we've had Noah Kahn, Ross Lynch. So there's not Ross Lynch. There's like different subsets within sub that do a lot of different things that bring activities to campus. So there's also usually like around finals and midterms they do a lot of different events about student wellness. And then every single week sub meets, and the different committees have different breakouts. And so from there, you can do different events. They typically plan different events like T-shirt painting or like different off-campus excursions, things like that. And so that's at least something. It's very varied in what it is, but I don't think it's nearly as niche as meets.
I think especially because, so I used to be in sub for about 2 years, and they have a really great first-year program called Flip. Really enjoyed that. It was such a big part of my freshman year, so 10 out of 10 would recommend that you apply if for all the prospective students out there.
Someone asked about club sports.
Okay, so how do club sports work on campus? So yes, they are affiliated with Notre Dame, and really it can be anybody who is a student or even a grad student can come and join. I remember in my freshman and sophomore year, we had a law student, and he was awesome. Shout out Dylan Yang. So yes, they are affiliated with Notre Dame. There's normally kind of a competitive and non-competitive branch of each of the club sports. So I'm on the competitive club tennis team, which has been really great. You get to go to tournaments within the country. So I've been able to go to Wisconsin, which is pretty electric. I've gone to Florida and Arizona for nationals, which was fun. So yeah, it's a great time. It's all good things.
Someone asked, neither one of you has done this, right? In the summer career discovery program?
No, unfortunately not.
Yeah. I don't think any of us have participated in the summer career discovery program, so we don't really have a whole much to speak on that, but I'm sure that there is a page that has useful information, and if not, we can find one and maybe put it up on a story or something like that.
I think, didn't Ellie do a little thing about pre-college?
I think so. So I know there's definitely blogs about pre-college and some of the earlier summer programs that are out there. And then, is there an official Notre Dame class between that? There isn't, right?
Not yet, not that we know of. So the Notre Dame class of 2029 is actually not necessarily affiliated with the ND admissions or the Notre Dame. It's normally just brought up by all the students who were accepted. So normally I do believe that pops up after decisions come out. So,
but I feel like there's always somebody that makes one.
Oh yeah.
And it's up and running, and it's super useful for everyone who gets to benefit from whoever's willing to do the hard work of making one and posting one. So there will probably be one in the next
couple months.
Yeah, a couple months. About this one.
Okay, so how does the university engage with the local community and promote civic engagement? I'll talk about 2 ways that I've seen this. So I talked about this program earlier, but Mercy Works, which is an opportunity for students to do service. And the way it works is students say where they'd like to work, and then you're partnered with students who maybe have a vehicle or who have a way to get off campus, or they Uber or take the bus, and groups of students go to different places throughout South Bend. And then another way that I'm involved is I work for Industry Labs, which is a pretty new lab on campus, and basically what they do is they work to connect businesses in South Bend with resources provided by the University of Notre Dame. So, for example, we have a capstone class for business analytics majors, and I think for engineering majors, to work with specific companies in South Bend. And we provide a lot of really cool technology. We'll do studies for them. We help to leverage the Notre Dame network for them. And those are just 2 examples of the many ways that Notre Dame engages with South Bend.
There's also a lot of different ways that you can volunteer. I know I've had friends who have done the Robinson Center, which is they also do a lot of the daycare work. So you can go and volunteer sometimes for classes or even specific credits of things, but also just on your own free time at both daycares and homeless shelters. There's a lot of different opportunities to get involved in the South Bend community, and I think that sometimes just being out in the South Bend community, you can find a lot of opportunities there. Because a lot of places around South Bend often need volunteers, and so if that's something that you're interested in, there's definitely a lot of different avenues you can go through Notre Dame to do that, but there's also just a lot of ways if you're out in South Bend that you can get involved as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, is that Cade? Sorry, I think
Okay,
can
I can
continue,
answer this question. So all undergrad students, and I think grad students too, are totally able to get or season passes to the football games. So if you're a student here and you'd like to go to the games, it's a flat fee, and you have access to every single football game. And if you're worried about whether or not you're able to afford tickets, there are a lot of resources on campus that will help pay for your student tickets if that's something you're not able to do. So never fear. I'm I personally came into college and I was not a football fan, and I am leaving college as a huge Notre Dame football fan.
Yes, and kind of just speaking on the point that Meaghan tackled is that, I am very thankful for the amount of financial aid that Notre Dame gives me. So I do have my my football tickets paid for through the Office of Student Enrichment. We love OSC.
Great office.
Yes, they are absolutely incredible in ensuring that students here on campus can have the fullest student experience as possible. So they pay for things such as club fees, dorm merch, football tickets, just class rings as well. So really anything that you can apply for, they'll help you cover.
Oh, I can speak to that a little bit. I was on Notre Dame student government my sophomore year especially. I ran the spring of my freshman year to be vice president of my dorm with the wonderful Emma Campbell.
Love her.
She is an icon. It was a wonderful year. The way student government, or specifically dorm government, works is there are junior commissioner positions when you're first moving into your dorm. So these cover different events you can work under, or there's other ones for people interested in like helping out with mass, or people interested in helping out with service, or we do food sales sometimes. And then when you reach your sophomore junior level, usually there's commissioner positions. So these are the people who are planning all these amazing events and running the different things in the dorm. But then there's usually a president and vice president, or two vice presidents, who oversee all of that, and they work to communicate with the rector and the RAs and everyone to sort of bring all the events together. And for me, it was just so amazing. It helped me make so many of my friends in my dorm. I did some hilarious events, and I was able to do a lot of service. So if you're looking for a really nice way to get involved with Notre Dame student government, that's a great way to do it.
Yes. And I know also Johnny, one of the other interns, is pretty heavily involved in student government. So I feel like he would be a really good resource. I think he's done several either blogs or pieces that should be up on our blog page, or I know there's lots of other things on our Notre Dame admissions page about student government. And if not, the student government also has a really good page.
Yes.
And I feel like they always do a really good job reporting the things that are going on campus, and all the work that they do as well.
Yep. And you can work on a class council, so you can specifically represent your class. There's a student council, which is more general. There's like lots of different ways to get involved with student government. There's people who do financial stuff, marketing, like event planning. So there's tons of different ways to do it.
And someone asked about service trips. There are service trips.
Yes.
So many of them actually.
So many.
There are a lot of service trips. From the ones that I know of, campus ministry does a really great job in doing a lot of immersion trips, especially during your fall and spring breaks. So one of the ones that I highlight, I personally haven't experienced it, but so many of my friends have done it, and they absolutely come back with raving reviews, but is the Appalachia immersion trip, where essentially you get to go in with a certain group to some part within the Appalachia region, doing a lot of service trips. And from what I do know is that it is fully immersive to the point of like it's don't come with like no service or internet, so you're kind of a little bit off the grid and unplugged. But I've heard it's just a great reflective time and giving back to that community.
Or that. Or that.
Maybe we end with like one more like general question. Maybe we talk a little bit about like if you have any advice to offer seniors on admissions, and also on like how to make the most of your freshman year wherever you go.
Yeah.
I guess.
I need to think about my first.
Okay. I'll start. Okay, so first off, if you have not started on your essays already, it's probably a good time to do that if you are applying in the fall cycle. But no fear, if you are not ready or you need a little more time, don't feel pressure to apply now if you would prefer to wait for the January 1st deadline. They are all good options. So the number one thing we tell our students is to apply when you feel ready and when you feel like your application best represents who you are as a student. And then in terms of like going into your freshman year, regardless of if it's like your faith or like if you believe in karma or whatever. I think everyone goes like where they're meant to be, and it's possible to have an amazing experience wherever you are. But I will say that the people who take the time to say yes to as many opportunities as they can, and who reach out to people and try to make an effort to, catch meals with people, get to know people, get to know your campus, get to know, the staff who work in your dorm or in the dining hall. Those types of things, like, are what really start to make your freshman year. So, obviously, like, there's an element of, like, luck as to, like I, happen to live down the hall from my best friends at school. But, if there's a time to put yourself out there, now is the time to do that.
I think as well, kind of, in addition to that, it's also knowing that your first year experience or even your college application experience will look so different from somebody else's. So really, as they say, comparison is the thief of joy. So really ensure that do what is best for you and what feels right for you. Like, essentially, you do not have to go to everything. Know when to balance yourself out, know when to take breaks, when to rest. Because, I would say that's kind of also my little tidbit.
Yeah, I like that. Something for the application process and both your first year, both at Notre Dame and also wherever you end up being. I think being authentic to who you are, whether that you want that to come through in your application, and also just in your friendships. When everyone gets to college, everyone's trying it out for the first time. Everyone's a little bit confused. No one has anything down, figured out. So I think just being gracious with yourself, and allowing yourself to adjust to college, because college, I feel like, is a pretty big change from what a lot of people have experienced in high school. So I think just having a little bit of grace for yourself, and then remembering that other people are also trying to figure things out for the first time. And so sometimes that can make it a little more daunting for people, but I think that's also, like Meaghan was saying, a great opportunity to put yourself out there a little bit and to be outgoing, or to maybe say hi to someone who you might not, or start up a conversation, just because everyone is new. And so, I mean, if you're feeling a little bit embarrassed, the chances that the person next to you is also feeling a little bit embarrassed are pretty high. But you can both feel embarrassed, and you can be friends, and you can kind of get through that together. And I also think that as far as your first year of college, like Meaghan was saying, I think being present and being very intentional about the relationship that you build, and also just figuring out yourself and who you are, your interests academically and also just personally, things like that. I think that's super valuable as well, just because what better time than when you're young and have a lot less to worry about than a lot of people in the world. And so I think that being present and being intentional about the things that you do is super valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on this live. We really, really appreciate it. Have a nice night, guys. And go Irish! Go Irish!